Right. I believe we're good to go. Welcome, everyone. My name is Ketchup, and I'm joined by the wonderful Flea. Sorry, a little bit of a delay there in the intro. That's totally on me. My name is Ketchup, joined by Flea again, and this is our latest week of the Quake Pro League. But stage 4, we've had tons of competition to reach this point, and the competition will continue. We've got a whole bunch of games lined up, and starting off with something like Spart1e versus Tox. I mean, a bunch of good matches lined up, Flea. I'm sure you'll agree.
Oh, absolutely. This is going to be a good game for Quake. So many highlights ahead of us. I think that my personal favorite matchup, and I think it's one that a lot of people are going to agree with me on, is, of course, Cypher taking on Razy. That is going to be one hell of a matchup later, but we've got plenty of other great games before we get to that point.
100%. And we're going to bring up the schedule a little bit later. Some other matches. CNZ versus Wenger is there. Happen a little bit later, but when we're kind of reaching that semi halfway point within the stage 4, I mean, we're starting to find out who's on the climb and who isn't. We have got some players that 100% have been on the climb and then some. Cypher's always going to be one of those players that you talk about because his climb and his rise to power has been pretty extreme. We have players like Wenger still sitting pretty in that higher level, trying to kind of inch those larger wins on a week-by-week basis. And I guess this week is just a continuation of that.
Absolutely. I mean, Wenger hasn't lost one in stage 4, and he had his best LAN showing ever in the history of his Quake career back at the stage 3 finals, where he managed to snag that 4th place. And just the stage 2 finals a few weeks beforehand, he came in 5th. So Wenger is just heading up and up, consistently doing better. And so far, he's already taken out some absolute top players. So the man is looking sharp.
But I mean, just in terms of the matches we expect today, I know our first matchup is going to be that Spart1e versus Tox. Definitely a matchup that I think is going to be challenging for Spart1e. He certainly hasn't been playing poorly recently, but there's definitely a kind of personal matchup coming here. I mean, when you look back at the previous results, when these two players go head to head, historically, Toxic, I mean, he's had the edge, right? So it's safe to assume this is going to be a challenging one for Spart1e, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. These two players, they've been around for many years. They are both very experienced veteran Quake players who have played at the highest, the top tiers of competitive Quake for so many years now. But as you mentioned, Toxic has so far manifested himself as the better Swede because, of course, these two players, they share the same nationality. They're both from the wonderful country of Sweden. And it's going to be interesting to see if Spart1e will finally be able to overthrow Toxic for the first time in the Quake Pro League.
I mean, it would be good for him, wouldn't it? It's one of those situations where if you fight almost like a demon at this point, someone that just seems to have your number every time, those kind of morale boosting victories, this is an opportunity to go, right, finally conquered one, now it's time for the rest. But I mean, key players, Flea, is there anyone this week that you're kind of really eyeing up?
I mean, there's always a few. I'm very curious to see if Wenger is going to continue that reign of terror. I already mentioned it briefly. So far, the Italian player has taken out not only Cooler, who's had his name on the belt before, as well as Kilson, who is the only player to have held the belt twice, and Wenger has just taken them down a notch in the first few weeks of Quake Pro League Stage 4 alone. So clearly the Italian stallion Kid Bellissimo is on quite the rip and tear right now, and I'm very curious to see how he's going to keep that up today.
It would be, I think, quite a story for Wenger. It seems like every single stage has those players that sort of this is their breakout stage. And I think Cypher, fair to assume that was his stage last in stage 3. But even though we're still like kind of early days into stage 4, it just begs the question of who is going to be that next one. Is it going to be a player that we've seen before already rise to the top? Is it going to be one of those players like a Wenger who's just been hungry the whole time but is still kind of inching towards that final big result, right? But it's just, for me, more of a testament to how insanely talented the player pool is. We can check out some highlights here from Spart1e, who has just been absolutely... I mean, he's looking a lot better now than he did at the start of the whole Pro League. It's just this matchup in particular, I think, is just going to be quite challenging.
I mean, it's just the nature of the Pro League, right? Back in the day, players, they would often just play in preparation of these major LAN events that were sprinkled around throughout the year every few months or so. But now with the Quake Pro League format as we currently have it, all of these players have to play every single week, with the exception of 2 bye weeks per stage. And so they are constantly going up against the other players in the world, the best pros out there, just to keep themselves in top shape. And you can very clearly see a number of these success stories. One that keeps coming up is also Chain, who we'll be seeing play later today, who have just exponentially increased their level of play and their skill just by the amount of pressure that they're always under.
But I mean, on the flip side of that, we have got players like Tox, who is just that eternal story of a sort of hit or miss. You know what I mean? Where it's all about execution for Tox, and sometimes that he's always got stiff competition. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes he's there and sometimes he's not. It's just with this matchup in particular. If I were to already go into the realm of prediction, it's just you feel like Tox is gonna be comfortable here just by previous encounters alone, but as is the nature of competition, anything's possible, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we've seen plenty of upsets throughout these weeks of the Quake Pro League, right? So it is absolutely not beyond Spart1e to take this map home. As we mentioned before, Spart1e can really bring the party. We have seen him hold fast when he played his relegation match against Garpy to keep himself in the Quake Pro League, putting up some pretty good results, taking maps of the absolute top players in the entire world. So this really isn't an unachievable goal for him.
Now, realistically, going into the picks and bans, we can see we have the Blood Covenant, the Awoken, and the Ruins is going to be the rotation of our first matchup. Ranger versus Galena, Doomslayer versus Visor, and then finally the Nyx versus the Strog. We do kind of get to see Tox going with a Crouch Slider again. We don't always actually, especially recently, we haven't had the chance to see Tox use constant use of Crouch Slide. I know that's like kind of a movement that he is famous for, but it's always nice to see him go back on, I guess, the movement style that is just so comfortable for him. And it helps that aggressive, just very kind of machine-like game plan when you have the speed and you have kind of the creativity that the Crouch Sliders bring you. But it is always interesting watching Tox go for something a little bit more reserved sometimes.
Very true. I mean, one of the main reasons that I feel like Tox hasn't been living up to that potential that a lot of people are expecting to see is that I sometimes feel like he just gets too aggressive, right? He just keeps on pushing over and over again, throwing away his life in the hopes of finally getting that edge over his opponent. And oftentimes it works. But when it doesn't, you are just giving up so many frags. By the time that you're finally mounting a comeback, it's often already far too late. And one of the big factors in that is, of course, those fast champions, because the speed, it kind of drives you, right? If you are not on top of the speed will take control of you, and you will be so tempted to just slide around the map, blindly around corners, where your opponent might just be setting up a trap. So it's very good, in my opinion, to see Toxic not just go for these comfort zone champions, right? Like the Slash, like the Anarchy, but also just working on his base overall as well.
But I mean, I'm looking at that final map too, and we're looking at the sort of potential matchup that's going to be going on there. And I'm a little bit concerned for Spart1e. It does entirely depend on how the other two maps go. It's fair to say that the first two maps will give us a lot of information over how Spart1e is going to be shaping up versus Tox this time. But you're looking at the Nyx versus the Strog, and I'm kind of just eyeing up the stack difference and the fact that on that map in particular, it can be such a snowball effect of a map if you have that really good crouch sliding movement. So if Tox is playing on form, if Tox is hitting all of his shots and he has that movement behind his belt, I think that going up against a light might be quite a favorable matchup for him. So we'll see how that one fares at the end, I reckon.
Oh, absolutely. And also, Ruins is a notoriously difficult map to play a light champion on, because you are so dependent on picking up those small armors, usually when you're playing a light. But on Ruins, they are in such bad places to collect. One is all the way at the bottom, the other is all the way at the top. But you're kind of stuck in that little plateau, that platform area with no clear getaway. So if you are caught out trying to get a hold of one of these small armors, you are in such big trouble. And as a light champion who relies on these resources so much, it is incredibly easy to just get spawn fragged over and over without really being able to manifest yourself on the map at any time.
But I think we have a decent matchup at the first. The Blood Covenant, we can see Ranger versus Galena. Spart1e has got the Ranger, and we've seen him do really good things with that champion in the past. It's quite a popular pick on this map for him anyway, as we've seen previously in Pro League. But it's all about those moments for Spart1e where he can go all in. You know, it's a situation where you can see the method behind why he's made a call, and it's kind of like almost impulsive. And when it works, it's great. But when it doesn't, it's like so consistently, it's like, maybe you should have been a bit more patient. Maybe you should have done this or that. But he believes in his decisions, right? And that's the thing. For better or worse, Spart1e believes in the decisions that he makes. But at least with Ranger, you've got that kind of element of flair, that surprise factor. The Dire Orb having the mobility when you want, the damage as well, which Spart1e's been able to get some really juicy little combos with that in the past. Up against Galena, and I mean, Galena she's not got the movement, but you have got that kind of stack on demand, right? And that does matter a great deal.
And it's going to be very important for Spart1e to keep culling that stack and just keeping a close watch on those totems to make sure that his opponent doesn't get 3 of them stacked up. And on that note, though, we are jumping into our first map of today's series. Spart1e versus toxjq, Ranger versus Galena on Blood Covenant.
Spart1e's having to be very respectful almost immediately. The second there's a rail in sight, he's got to avoid any damage at this point. Want to make sure it's unreturned when you've got that kind of high ground there, but checking out things from Spart1e's POV first. I mean, the important thing is he's got some pretty key weapons. He has got that ranged potential with the rail. Unfortunately, misses that opening shot, but the second shot's not going to connect either. But you know that Tox is going to have to play quite respectful here. He knows he's going to get outranged. The rail finally comes into play. Now, whoa, yeah, just immediate push right here. But the rocket's not going to quite be enough. Tox is going to score that first blow.
He's got himself a nice little pathway onto the Mega as well, and this is looking good for Tox because there is a very nice delay between the two items, around 15 seconds, so that enables toxjq, the Swedish Terminator, to really set up a nice rotation, missing that rail that would have given him so much control over everything. And now Heavy sitting. Both players have got their eyes on the prize. toxjq got the better positioning. Spart1e landing down some rockets. That's a pretty good damage, actually. toxjq whiffing quite a few rails right there.
Yeah, rails haven't been 100% on either side so far, so it's kind of hard to say that either player has that distinct advantage. They're both not quite hitting those shots. Tox using that one rocket for a rocket jump, but it's going to be the last one in the tank. And Spart1e looks like he's having to jump down towards that light armor, which is going to take him a little while to get back up.
toxjq going for a little bit of a sneaky totem placement. I don't know if he got it off. Now toxjq setting up a pretty solid rotation here. Still in control, and those kinds of rails is what's going to keep him in the driving seat. Spart1e, again, having to look for resources, manages to steal away the Mega, but is in such a bad spot. toxjq surely will pounce on this one. Spart1e, can he get out? He still throws the orb as a getaway attempt, but can't get the teleport off on time. And toxjq extending his lead already 2-0, and he's gonna find Spart1e again. The nail gun, it hurts a lot, and toxjq has to break away, giving up positioning on the Heavy while he's at it.
But at the very least, he gets away with his life. Running away there is not going to be as punishing, because at least he was able to force the orb away from Spart1e before the last frag. If an orb was ready there, I guarantee Spart1e would have popped it. Yeah. But as we can see, more rockets for Tox running out, so he's having to resort to the Tri-Bolt for extra spam. Not the end of the world, he's still going to get a little piece of damage. I say a little piece, that just became significantly more, and even more punished Spart1e. He's licking his wounds, he's tender, he's in trouble.
Yeah, one more bullet would have done it there. Spart1e still sticking around, gets the teleport off just in time. Spart1e's doing a decent amount of damage, though. He is definitely standing up for himself, stopping toxjq from really just gaining full control of the map. As he steals away a Mega health. Stacks are relatively similar right now. Oh, that's a bad jump pad to go on. toxjq, the LG, is murderous, but the rocket's bouncing him back. Both players really low right now. Wow. And it's Spart1e! Wow, the fly-by rocket out of nowhere. toxjq absolutely not ready for that.
Yeah, checking it from Tox outside, it's almost like he was... fucking even finished talking about it. Tox is going to land a rail immediately, and that's an opportunity to stabilize.
Yeah. Spart1e perhaps a bit too greedy, heading for the Heavy as well. toxjq will punish that transgression mercilessly so.
Almost gets the good call out near the light armor too, actually. The thing about Tox is that he's forever just been on Spart1e's tail. Spart1e's not really had any room to be comfortable in this map so far, and it's mostly coming down to these rails from a further range. The use of the totem used not really to set up here at all. He's using it exclusively for when these fights break out, and normally Spart1e feels comfortable going in. Here comes the totem damage, but right there gets the rail just before the health can be granted. Perfectly timed, and not a bad spawn at all. Tox, he's going to get this one light armor, but that's all he has access to. Spart1e knows, fresh off the spawn, he's got no weapons. What's he going to do to fight back? Nothing. Nothing at all.
Spart1e looking to be in excellent shape so far, mentally too, because missing that heavy, that could have tilted a lot of players, but he kept himself strong, and the rockets are beautiful too. And it will be the Spart1e party, man, getting himself in the lead as we approach the midway mark of the first map.
5-minute warning.
A lot of action has happened in a short span of 5 minutes here in map 1. Nice positioning of jumping down, dropping the totem. I mean, kind of 2 for the price of 1 putting it that far forward. It kind of shuts down Spart1e's advance and heals you at the same time. Really good shout there, but Tox is quite weak. The goal, try and get some of our stack back up. That armor's going to be good, but here comes the machine gun. Looks like Tox is going to have a pretty significant advantage here. The orb's been used. Nail gun versus heavy machine gun. It's a fight that most people never like to take. It's just projectile versus hit scan, right? Tricky business.
Spart1e actually messed up right there. He orbed a little bit too quickly and didn't make it onto the bridge. That could have backfired tremendously, but Toxic was pretty low himself and had to get out of the room too. Nice little rail in the back. Toxic knows exactly where his opponent is, looking for some more damage. Spart1e desperately clinging on to the stack he has. We're seeing both players slow things down a little bit. We've hit the 6-minute mark. Game is entirely tied up right now. So no one wants to give up any more frags or advantages to their opponent at this stage.
I'm liking how regularly Tox is shutting down some armors, though. You know, using a Galena at a high level just involves the fact that you can give yourself health almost whenever you want, as long as you have a totem ready to rock. However, I'll talk about this later because it looks like a fight's going to break out in Spart1e, pushing Tox away. What I was going to say is that you can control health in your own pace and then shut down the armors, right?
Yeah. And that was a tremendously good engagement for Spart1e. Toxic came around the corner with basically max stack, max health, max armor, having all the major items. And Spart1e just completely turned that around with some good rockets into the orb combo. And here we go. A lot of damage raining down against Spart1e. Has to get out though. Toxic, he wants to see that final bit of damage. These defensive rockets
They've been
from
so
Spart1e.
good. They have been absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely lifesavers this time around. Spart1e though, struggling down below, around 30 points of health to his name. He's going to give himself a small armor.
I mean, good shout from Tox too. He heard the light, but he knew that the health was not going to be there for Spart1e, so the chance of him fighting back on that heavy was almost non-existent, so he's just in and out without a care in the world, really.
Yep.
Now with the Mega about to spawn, you'll notice Tox, he really has so consistently just been in a better position for these important items almost all the time. Spart1e's done a good job of being able to steal them away when he can. Has put himself into a tricky position here, but it looks like Tox is not aware that he's here yet. And I don't think he's made the call. Okay. Can Spart1e escape?
That could have ended really badly for Spart1e.
Oh, he's out.
Toxic. Yeah.
Okay. In and out. Gone.
Toxic just absolutely no clue that his opponent was there. Spart1e taking a bit of a risk in that situation. Waiting for an opportunity to get himself some small armors, because he knows, of course, that Toxic will pick up the heavy, which makes it difficult for him to deny any of the small ones. And Spart1e was just hanging around, waiting for that opportunity. He knows that the bottom armor near the pillars is up as well. He's gonna make his move on that one. Decent 100-100 stack right now, but it is Toxic who's got a beautiful rotation going on. 15 seconds between the items, can just keep on running this cycle around the map, hoping to catch sight of Spart1e, which he will do right now.
Tox always ready for a surprise attack, though. Spart1e tries, but is met with just a little bit of damage. I saw about a 30 or so. Nothing really to write home about, but the important thing is that he's always on his toes, right? Tox is looking out for it. And while Tox keeps this giant stack, you're never going to be truly comfortable. Spart1e's been hitting some absolutely ridiculous damage so far on those rockets. And all it takes is one better rocket than Tox, and a lot of that difference is going to get swiftly taken away. Good rail for Tox. Then Spart1e trying to play the runaway game, but 2 rails in a row. That one's going to hurt. Can he get away? There's no way he's going to jump up there. He'd be crazy.
1-minute warning.
I love the patience on Tox's behalf right there, though. Because you could have been so inclined to just go in full aggro, trying to chase Spart1e down, but Toxic knew that Spart1e still had his orb, he still had the rockets, and with a minute left on the clock, when you've got this kind of an advantage over your opponents, there's no reason for Toxic to just go that aggressive just yet. He wants to keep playing the game on his terms, choking out Spart1e from all resources, continuing to do that kind of damage exactly, and then the opportunity will no doubt present itself sooner rather than later. So a commendable patience and restraint from Toxic right there.
But there's also been a lot of patience being shown from Spart1e, checking things out from his side at the moment. The amount of being situations where he's very close to Tox, but he's still somehow able to kind of dodge and get away before Tox has put himself into a position. That's a bit of a surprise attack. But answering it back with more rockets. Tox gets the frag at the last minute. Spart1e, I mean, there was somewhat of a chance there when you get the jump pad, you get the guaranteed LG trail, but the reality is the entry damage from Tox was just so extreme. And then you throw the totem on top and it's like, well, GG's. He's just got the sustain, he's got the damage, and in that case, he's got the map win.
Yeah, Spart1e played that beautifully up until the very end. Such evasive plays all the way around. For like the past 3 minutes or something, he just stayed clear of Toxic the entire way through, hiding himself just right underneath Toxic, right? Toxic was up at Rocket, Spart1e was just waiting down below at the bounce pad, or in that tiny little cubby to the side of the heavy armor spawn, and just completely stayed clear from Toxic. But then in the very end, the Terminator did catch sight of him and just managed to run home with the advantage that he got. He had the stack advantage, he could afford to go up the bounce pad, even with Spart1e waiting with the LG up there, and still come out on top. So Toxic will take home map 1, but it was a close one.
But I think that's going to be the key, because when these two players have fought in the past, it's been a very comfortable experience for Tox, and the maps have been, some of them have been insanely strong for him. But with map 1 being as close as it was, that's retention, isn't it? That's the fact that, can we really call much after this? Not really. I think it was so much patience from both sides. It's just when the time to fight happened, Spart1e would get some excellent retreating damage and some excellent defensive damage that would kind of disengage that. But, you know, when it's a simple matter of, right, we fight, you know, Tox, that use of the totem was almost perfect during their fights. That extra little bit of stack helped him out. But ultimately too, just damage. The damage was excellent too.
And also, it was just Toxic's rail towards the end really started picking back up, and that gave him a crucial advantage towards the end, because there were quite a few situations where Spart1e went in on an item just looking to do a bit of damage, right? He would stand on bridge near heavy, peeking down, trying to shoot down a rocket or land a rail, and it was always Tox who managed to do basically unreturned damage. Spart1e would land like a 20 damage rocket, but Toxic in return landed him with 1, maybe 2 rails, and that kind of consistent damage output made it so that Spart1e's efforts to apply pressure always just backfired on him, and Toxic just continued steamrolling him for the past few minutes. So impressive plays from both, but map 1 went to Toxic as we are starting to load into the second one, which will be Awoken, of course.
Now, Awoken, I mean, it's always a good map to watch. But with Tox, if he's able to hit those really strong rails, as he is, and then you've got the piercing sight, it's always a nice combination. You take an incredibly rail-happy player, I suppose, and then you give them that extra vision, and it works wonders for them. But also at the same time, I mean, we have an extremely meta pick coming out from Spart1e. The Doomslayer, I mean, it's at this point got to be absolute one of, if not the most popular champion on this map if it makes it through, because it's just the difference the double jump makes. So we're gonna have this mobility versus vision game going on, and we'll see if Spart1e is able to stay himself reserved, like that kind of really slow paced style where you're constantly evading. It's naturally going to be harder on a smaller map because there's just all other kind of moving parts that just make it a little bit more difficult for you. But Spart1e, I mean, he's been playing well, and we'll see if he can get that edge on map number 2.
Yeah, this is most definitely going to be a battle of mobility versus information. So we're jumping into Awoken, the smaller map of the two that we've seen so far. Instantly, we are seeing a bit of a delay on the heavy pickup. Toxic waiting before picking it up. He did the same thing on the previous map on Blood Covenant with his starting item. So again, hoping to get himself a steady rotation, but it is Spart1e doing most of the opening damage right here. Bit of LG to push him back, but still not a bad opener right there. And what you see right now is something that happens pretty much every single time on Awoken. Both players, they get their weapons on their respective sides of the map, and now they're rotating around. Toxic going for some of the other weapons as Spart1e finally getting himself a rocket and LG, but that rocket to the face is not going to sit well with him. As toxjq, beautiful rocket jump, the reads from the Terminator. Now that was one hell of a play.
Now the question is, what's he going to get? Looks like he's going to get a perfect shout out towards the lightning gun, but Tox himself is not completely healthy, but he is able to get that rail angle all the same. Chose to be aggressive, gets a good shout on the spawn, and he knows there's going to be not a lot of weapons to work with there from Spart1e. And now gets the finishing touches. Spart1e's having to be patient again. Only a rocket launcher in hand. And now he's just sticking his ear to the ground and he's listening for where Tox is going to be, opening things up with 100, and then a 98 should be able to turn it round. Those rockets were excellent.
Now Spart1e has to be careful because he may have gotten the frag, but he is in a bad spot. toxjq spawns over at LG, so he's immediately got that good starting weapon as well as a decent amount of stacks. Spart1e, he has to get out of here, 20 points of health left. That won't get you very far. And now we're again seeing evasive Spart1e come out. He wants nothing to do with his opponent, just wants to stick around, get himself some stack, will find himself a decent amount of health and a bit of armor as well. But it will be toxjq to secure the heavy and once again establish control of the items.
A bit of an early rocket jump here from Tox. Spart1e has to try and spam around that corner just a little bit, keep him away. But as the nature of Awoken, the fight for these items so important. And there's a chunky delay between the two of them. And similar to Blood Covenant, looks like Tox is the one that's a bit more consistently in control of them too. There's still about 3 seconds until this heavy spawns. Spart1e's going to be in position. But Tox, answers back with a rail. Tox is railable himself. Going in for that peak. I mean, confidence to peak right there.
Yep. And that is just the mobility of the Doomslayer, being able to double jump across to get that small armor instantly without having to worry to give up any more angles is going to help Spart1e out so much. Can he do anything else right here? Catching toxjq off the spawn, unfortunately not as healthy as he was hoping to be. The rockets are good, but the dodge with the double jump is even better. Spart1e once again looking to apply some pressure. This is not working out for him, and toxjq out of nowhere with some beautiful rockets into the machine gun will get himself the frag. And Spart1e, a bit of a surprised reaction right there. The Oki comes out.
I mean, it's rare that you're able to get rockets of that caliber versus a Doomslayer that is currently double jumping. It's the whole nature of Doom is that he's a little bit harder to hit. Wait a minute, spawning near the SSG. That's cannon right there. But he's going to get that frag all the same, fresh off spawn. Able to just stop things a little bit. You know, that kind of frag near teleporter can sometimes just sow the seeds of disaster. But looks like so far, Spart1e has been able to not just bring himself back in, but just like that, he's taken the lead.
Spart1e is just reinventing himself right now after that first map. He's gonna hear those pickups. He knows that toxjq is over on the LG side of the map. Can he trap him before the escape? He will indeed. Spinning the trap, and out come the rockets. toxjq will fall once more, and Spart1e will be in no danger whatsoever with that mega to his name of the spawn. This is a brawl catch-up. Just look at both of these players go.
Yep, I mean, they're just swinging at the moment. The danger for toxjq is that he's consistently without light. And even going in for that light, he's going for it because he wants to both shut it down and get it for himself. But it's risky because Spart1e, he knows you're going to do it. You have to do it. Otherwise, you're more than likely to just get tagged and taken out. But it has allowed Spart1e to get even more of a dominant showing here. A combo into rail. Spart1e, a man reinvented.
I mean, this is one of the reasons why he was such a massive competitor back in the day, and clearly still is. He is just bouncing toxjq around the room non-stop. And this is one of those situations where you can really see that mobility that we discussed earlier come into play, right? toxjq is just struggling to do anything when Spart1e catches even a whiff of him, whereas Spart1e has just got so much freedom of movement that he can constantly apply pressure, jump over and across just about anything. And toxjq has no answer to it, because even when he does have his ability at ready, that piercing sight, he doesn't have the stack, he doesn't have the weapons to really make perfect use of it.
Another problem too is Tox has been consistently pushed away from that rail. Spart1e getting caught a little bit near the teleporter. Now, this is an opportunity for Tox to at least finish the weapon combo, right? He finally has the rail. And now he can start getting extra damage if he needs to. That's some excellent damage from the tri-bolt, and now the green light to go in. And he hears the teleporter. Piercing sight, he could have been anywhere. Let's get that extra information, chase it down, look for it. Spart1e tries to be defensive, but can't. Now, we talked about the spree that Spart1e went on. But there's an opportunity for Tox to pick things back up. This teleporter, he's making the call just in case, trying to stay safer. Gets a little bit of control back too. And now Tox able to play. He's able to match the LG and then some. The pillar blocks one of the shots, but who cares? We get another. Now Tox is bringing it back. 2 frags away. Looking good.
I mean, it's the nature of Awoken, right? 1, 2, doesn't go for a first. Counts on the LG to finish it off, but Spart1e actually clinging on for dear life. Managing to stabilize at least a little bit, but he has to be so careful. Tox knows exactly where he is, and the rocket will tie things up, and off the spawn immediately the piercing sight. Spart1e will be able to get away though, but there's so much time left, and this is the nature of Awoken catch-up. It's one of those maps where once you get the advantage, you can really just string together so many frags. We saw Spart1e do it first, and now toxjq is handing it right back to him on a silver platter.
See the strength of that defensive tri-bolt. You know, rockets can be quite a finite resource on a map like this. And that tri-bolt's so good for those tight corners, those retreating angles. Tox himself has got so much mileage out of this weapon already. He's ready for some machine gun. Going in for the finish it off. Spart1e gets caught a little bit. The aggressive rocket. Whoa! Tox able to dodge that one, only on 79 HP, so that direct would have hurt. Spart1e, the aggressive double jump, but it looked like Tox was ready for it.
I mean, the big weakness of the double jump, right? It is the LG. When you're flying through the air, you are basically set on that same trajectory, and it makes it so easy for the other player to get a good read and a good tracking with the LG going. And toxjq made perfect use of that, of course, known to have one of the best lightning gun games in the business, and he's showing it once again. All tied up, 9-9. Spart1e with the stack advantage, but toxjq has got the better positioning and has got all the weapons he needs.
Tox opportunity. Okay, nice little jump there from the nails. But he's being very respectful of the fact that he doesn't have rockets. But who needs rockets when you've got an LG like that? The berserk was popped for Spart1e to escape. Tox was kind of ready for the angle, but Spart1e's got to be 1 HP. That had to be right there.
Pinned to the wall and savaged is what that was. I think the saving grace is just that the double jump gave him that extra momentum to get out of reach of the LG. Spart1e just went flying so high that the lightning gun couldn't even touch him anymore, and that gave him the opportunity to escape. Now toxjq is the one to stabilize and regain his stack faster. This is the shot though. This is an important exchange, and it's actually going to favor Spart1e. 2 nice rail shots.
Even from this, hitting a single rail is going to be pretty good for him. That piercing sight. Nice double jump for Spart1e. No angle for you. The fight towards Mega. There's still plenty of time, and now this is bad for Tox. He just has to just look at him at this point to finish the job. How does Tox recover? Oh, he's ready for it. Tox knows this is a critical point of the map. With Tox as weak as he is, really can't afford to concede a frag when we have just over a minute left of the clock. Spart1e's being nice and aggressive, but he's opted to get himself some control too. Now who's going to be able to go towards this heavy, as the heavy now is ready to rock. Both players are a little bit more interested in the fight. Looks like Spart1e's going to be the one to soak it up, and just like that, Tox has to be incredibly careful here.
And Spart1e on the other hand, he cannot take his foot off the gas one bit. He needs to continue applying the same kind of pressure he was doing earlier, because otherwise Tox is going to turn things around so quickly. Look at that! That is more damage than a rocket to the face catch-up. Tri-bolt can be such a powerful weapon when used at that exact right range, and that is what toxjq just did. Now Spart1e, still the one with the stack advantage. Can he make something happen here? He wants to end this before we go into overtime.
Look at it. No! No! The double jump's not enough, Flea! The double jump wasn't enough!
Finally comes out from
yo, that's BM. That's rude right there. I've never seen toxjq be so rude in Pro League.
Oh my god.
Oh no!
Doesn't even bother moving after that, even though he still had 10 seconds left. He just knows that it is done and dusted at that point. Oh my god. Ketchup, that was tragic.
Yeah.
Just watching him like desperately making the jump back, trying to get into the map once more. But that one rocket just sent him flying into the cold dead waters of Awoken. and that means that Toxic is already 2-0 up, so the series is definitely going to go his way. But of course, his opponent Spart1e can still net himself some of those precious points that he desperately needs.
I mean, I was fully expecting the end of that map to kind of go Spart1e's way with how close it's been, with how back and forth it was, the confidence, the accuracy too. I mean, Spart1e's been playing rock solid. And against Tox, I mean, we have to always say that he's historically had trouble in this player matchup. That, you know, you would absolutely think maybe this is the time. This is the time where he finally steps up in this one particular matchup and gets the win, right? But I mean, Awoken, it's a map famous for its ring outs. And in those situations, the ring outs are so heartbreaking because they delete stack in the snap of a finger, and that's exactly what happened in its purest form. Tox, though, I mean, look, it was down to his position, right? Like, he was in that position to get that rocket. He hit the shot to just put the whole thing in motion, and ultimately going to walk away with a map win. It's just, yeah, tragic for Spart1e right there.
If that ring out had happened at any other time during the map, things would have been okay, right? Spart1e would have been able to mount a comeback afterwards, but just with 10 seconds left on the clock, heartbreaking. Toxic even saying something, the smiley in chat mid-game. I mean, I think you just know that Toxic, when he typed that smiley, he was not smiling. It's a Terminator, he doesn't show emotions. You know that he was just sitting there, stone-faced, not even a slight grin entertaining his lips as he sends, you know, adds a little bit of an insult to injury right there.
I respect it.
I do too, but once again though, Spart1e on the verge of greatness once more, but just unable to really drive it home. First map, another nail-biter, came down to the very end, one frag of a difference, and now once again on map 2. So hopefully Spart1e can still hang on to that mental fortitude and not start tilting or giving up too soon.
Oh, it was right through the jump pad. I mean, he was listening out for it too. Like that's what it came through. Was that he's? So I had my personal replay came through a little bit late, so I was reacted to that late. Don't worry for those watching. But it was the second he heard the jump pad and the rocket came through, it just continued the juggle. Like, he just carried him off. Looks like we're now loading into our final map, Ruins of Sarnath, and you know, we've touched on this kind of champion matchup a little bit, where we've seen time and time again how good crouch sliders can be. The slash was removed at the very beginning of this series, but you know, Strog is definitely a champion that can just cycle around things really quickly. And if you're hitting those crazy good shots like Tox, you know, he's famous for doing that. He's like Mr. Execution. I think he's got a potentially quite a favorable position here. However, Spart1e, he's been playing smart so far, and he's been playing nice and, you know, defensive, and when the time comes to be assertive, he is. That Ghost Walk is naturally going to help that quite a lot. So not as worried about it now, purely because Spart1e has been looking rock solid all series long. It's just, look, that second map, that kind of thing will happen. You know what I mean? It happens to the best of them, and it happened to Spart1e. So hopefully he can mentally recover from that and go straight into this map and just forget about it.
Yeah, this is going to be a difficult matchup, though. We talked about it at the beginning. This matchup on this particular map most definitely favors Toxic, who already netted himself 2 map wins so far. So this is a tall order for Spart1e on the Nyx. Both major items picked up at about the exact same time. Spart1e looking for that final weapon, using the wall jump to avoid damage there. A very clever play. Of course, you can use the Doom double jump as well as the Nyx wall jump to kill the momentum of going up a bounce pad to avoid setting yourself up for that easy damage. Now Spart1e, though, getting choked away from the resources, has to rocket jump up, and when you're playing a light champion, that takes a good amount of your stack away. Nice rails, though. A purge to boot. The fourth and final one. Toxic is low, but still retaliating powerfully. Spart1e will be the one to break away right there, realizing it is not worth the risk to go for that final engagement.
But there's a confidence from Spart1e. Yeah, he knows that Tox is too weak to fight. Tox was able to get in and get at least one rocket. A nice brave use of that rocket jump, though. Spart1e with the timing, confident that he can beat Tox to it. And again, knowing that Tox is going to have a low stack, you know, how much presence is he going to be able to push here? But it looks like we get some opening damage there from Tox, getting rid of all that armor from Spart1e. And now Tox, just like that, is nice and healthy. And it's Spart1e looking for some armor.
Spart1e definitely needs the armor, and that's what I mentioned before we even started this series. It is so risky to collect small armors on this map, especially when you're a light champion. Luckily for Spart1e, he does have that Ghost Walk, so that's a bit of an escape. Jail 3 card. Rockets being decent. Toxic has to retreat right there, and Spart1e getting his stack up quite nicely. So far, Toxic is the one to get the Megas. Spart1e, most of the heavies, just dodges on by the Peaker.
Yeah, that's the kind of Pika usage too, where Tox was able to, even if he couldn't see Spart1e, he heard the just zipping past. Wait a minute, he's right next to me. I should probably cancel this. And now, the thing about Tox is that he's in better position for Mega. Right, so he's going to be able to get access to that. Not quite able to beat him towards Heavy. These two items, there hasn't been enough of a significant delay in between the two of them. But a lot of respect being shown both ways. Again, like no one's going to push too hard just yet. The return damage has been high on both sides. No clean go-ahead to push just yet. And Tox keeping a consistently high stack, but it's being whittled down piece by piece with Spart1e. The good rails.
Spart1e realizing that Toxic denied that small armor. He's gonna hope to get himself the heavy. Nice little rail there too. He's got the Ghost Walk. Might have to use it in this engagement if he wants to get out alive, but it will actually be Toxic to be the first one to break away. Not quite sure why he did that. Definitely had the upper hand even after taking that railgun. Probably wanted to avoid just taking some more damage and then having an aggressive Ghost Walk sprung on him, because that can make things go south oh so quickly. Spart1e actually looking to secure himself the first Mega in quite some time.
But the payout for that is the fact that both items have no delay. So Tox was able to use the Pika to just at least get some information there, and then he knows he's safe to get the heavy. So it's been a pretty consistent game of both players kind of just trading off one of the two items so far. He's been able to get himself some rockets too. Tox was out of rockets for a fair while. I think Tox knows, and we've seen this from him before, absolutely happy to play the patient man's game. Even though he is a high-octane player, all it can take is that one frag, that one opportunity to just give yourself the lead, and then Tox can just keep that cycle of the map going. He can keep both items. He can start to finally put a delay in between the two of them. And we know crouch slides can do the same thing on a map like this, just how far, almost unmatched in speed you can get around.
Same thing holds true for Spart1e as well, though. If he manages to get himself even a single frag, that Ghost Walk can help you get out of so many sticky situations that Toxic absolutely does not want to be the first one to give up a life. Because Spart1e, even though it's a difficult map to play as a light, can make so much happen with their Ghost Walk. Nice bit of rocket damage, and it's actually Spart1e starting to establish control. I think this is second cycle that he's gotten both of the items. Looking solid, and now it's Toxic on the back foot.
I kind of loved the long game on these two items too, because when we started this map, there was almost a complete, just, you know, they spawned at the same time. Whereas gradually, piece by piece by piece, there's been an extra couple of seconds each time added to the delay, and we finally reached that point. You know, we're about halfway through this map now, where there was finally enough of a delay where one of the two players could make a decision, you know, a hard decision to get both of them in and have that control. But Tox, the defensive shot was really good. Can he finish the job? Even with that heavy in play, Spart1e nowhere near healthy. He needs health, and he needed it 20 seconds ago.
Yeah, I clenched a bit right there. I felt that rail just barely missing Spart1e. He's got to be so careful right now. Ghost Walk popped at the right time. Is he once again going to use it aggressively? He will. It's a bit early for Mega, though. Should still be able to secure the item. And now Toxic in a bad spot. Spart1e, do not let him get away this time. And indeed, it will be the first frag of this map. Beautifully played from Spart1e, just holding his ground on Mega. You could tell Toxic had no read on his opponent whatsoever.
Could have been a worse spawn.
Rocket was so good.
I mean, it could have been a worse spawn for Tox. He's able to solve both LG and Rail almost immediately, and he's got himself a stack as well. Hitting the shots, unfortunately for him, though, they are returned by Spart1e, who gets it just at the right time for when Mega spawns. And the confident Spy that we know, there's no way that Tox is going to be able to beat him towards that Mega, so let's just push out and get an extra rail first.
That was indeed a very confident play, knowing that even if he takes a railgun to the face right there, he's got a Mega behind him to stack right back up. So Spart1e, a very calculated decision right there. That Peaker is looking menacing. Oh my goodness, Toxic, he knows Spart1e is there. He has 100% read on his opponent. Both players low, both will retreat.
Almost.
Spart1e's got the better escape route right here. He's got himself some armor, got himself a bit of health, whereas Toxic does secure the Mega. So it's all eyes on Heavy now.
See, Tox still doesn't want to prioritize getting a rocket yet. It's all about getting that rail first. The light armor. We have to make sure we don't get beat to it. Spart1e ready for some rockets. The rock-solid defense. And he's ready. Every time Tox is around, he's ready to capitalize. Whether it's a rail from range, of which he's hitting most of them. When they're close range, his rockets have been great too. The defensive shot, I mean, a pretty tricky defensive shot to make when you're going at that speed. Ghostwalk, unfortunately, is going to concede that Mega, but as long as Spart1e's hitting rails like this, he's going to forever keep Toxic uncomfortable. And he's still playing absolutely fantastic.
I feel that moment might have been a big change up in Toxic playstyle. He knows that there's only 3 minutes left when he respawns, and you could just instantly see him go full aggro right there, halfway across the map. He knows time is running out. Nyx is such a slippery champion to chase down, so he wants to again push to get control of the map and make things very uncomfortable for his opponent. Because he knows 2 frags, tall order against any Nyx, and Spart1e clearly shows that he knows this champion well.
And every 40-30 seconds, hourglass depending, you know that the Ghostwalk is going to be ready quite regularly. So it's the element of having to kind of almost do double the work, you know, force the Ghostwalk out first. A situation where most champions would have been kind of almost stuck at the point of no return. Not the case for Nyx, as Spart1e can escape down their jump pad. And just that, he's away, and he's safe. 2 minutes on the clock, Spart1e, the instant shift. Now Tox being hyper-aggressive, Spart1e ultra-defensive, and absolutely he has to. Tox has a lot of work to do here. 2 frags may not sound like a lot, but with how Spart1e is going to make it not easy to hit those shots.
He is playing a strange game right now, just waiting onto the Heavy for Toxic to come down to pick it up at the last possible moment, but that is going to backfire, it seems, unless the final rocket doesn't quite connect, but Spart1e clinging on to just 15 points of health. That was risky. Spart1e sat near a spawned Heavy for up to 20 seconds right there. Ketchup, he could have picked it up at any moment, but he waited for Toxic to show up because he wanted to get that maximum stack before the engagement. He wanted to stand his ground, and it almost went awry. But still, time is dwindling, 1 minute left, and Toxic right now is feeling the pressure.
I mean, any other fight, Toxic would have been able to seize it. It's that Spart1e's rockets did such a good job of knocking Tox up. Watching it from his POV, what? Okay. Now, what's the spawn going to be? I was going to say that basically the rocket damage had knocked Tox up so high that it was really throwing off his aim, and most of that damage just didn't hit. And it kind of allowed Spart1e to live. Now, the problem is that just with a rocket just like that now, Tox, he's going to have full control. Spart1e, there is a Ghost Walk, and with 35 seconds on the clock, this kind of goes into what we talked about. Is he going to have to use it? He's got nothing! He's got absolutely nothing! What's the call? The chase looks like Tox! He's right! He gets the right shout! And no, Spart1e, this is the point of no return that we talked about before, but no Ghost Walk this time! Oh no!
Spart1e. I think he just went far too passively right there, because now all he's got is an LG. It's a basic stack, and Toxic will find him off the bounce pad, and that is going to be it. Spart1e will be calling the GGs, as it will be Toxic, the Swedish Terminator, to claim that 3-0 victory. Ketchup, what are your thoughts on that one?
I feel bad for Spart1e, because in all 3 maps, he was so close but so far. All 3 maps, for the absolute vast majority, it could have gone either side, and Tox didn't have a clear lead, ever. And it still wasn't enough. We end up with the same result, but the maps went down in a way that they don't normally go down. This was an unusual series, to be honest, with just what happened. But look, Tox keeping that streak high versus Spart1e, but Spart1e playing so insanely well on all 3 maps, you just got to feel bad for it.
Absolutely, and you could tell in that final map too, he had control for a huge portion of the map. If you looked at the item pickups towards the end, Spart1e had more of each, I think both Heavy and Mega by a sizable amount of one of them, so clearly he had a really good rotation on the items and managed to steal away from Tox consistently when his opponent got into control. But then I just feel like it was so passive towards the end. I think he probably just figured that you could run down the clock, 2 minutes left to go, you're next, sure, but it is so dangerous to completely disappear off the map the way he did, sitting next to that heavy, waiting and waiting and waiting, and then taking so much damage. You see it right here, he picks up the heavy, but look at the damage that he's taken right there.
But it's like
15 points of health.
It's like we mentioned though. At that moment, what saved his skin was that one rocket near stairs that just sent Tox completely carrying forward, and it just prevented that entire sprint. I mean, we saw it from Spart1e's POV anyway, but it totally threw things off. But then after that, it was that extreme passiveness that let Tox just fly around, soak up everything on the map. That one kind of like just drive-by rocket that just came out of nowhere near the eye. And it's like, okay, well, I guess that happened. And then, just the rest of it was history, I suppose. Spart1e, I mean, he's not going to be too chuffed about that. And quite understandably so. It really was unlucky at the end of Awoken to have just got hit by the ring out like that. But it's the threat of the map, and it's why you've got to be so careful going up the jump pad that Tox listened out for it, hit the rocket, and before your feet even touch the ground, you just continued. You just continue to go.
And I mean, that was a one frag game every single map. It was tied until the final 30 seconds or so, and then toxjq managed to get himself the lead. Such an incredibly close series, but in the end, toxjq just had that consistently going for him. You had the heartbreaking ring out on Awoken, and then the failed attempt at going passive right here, but still, Spart1e's showing that he's got the skills, right? He just went head-to-head to toxjq, and that could have really gone either way. This could have been a 3-0 win for Spart1e just the same.
Yeah, it's just the nature of the maps. And although it didn't go his way, I think it's still a demonstration over how far he's come within Pro League. And it is almost unusual saying that about a 3-0, but it is. You just look at the way he was playing here against Tox, someone that he's historically had loads of trouble with. And all three of those maps, he had a real chance to like turn the tide every single time. So a good match all round, and one hell of a way to kickstart the week. Our next matchup is going to be Nosfer versus Zanaku, but we're going to cut to a quick break and get things set up. So remember everyone, Quake Pro League Stage 4. We'll see you soon.